Are you making these classic freestyle mistakes without even realizing? Well, now we're about to find out. Welcome to the final episode of the Entry to Freestyle series, where I'm in the van to break down and analyze your guys' clips. I'm going to be highlighting some common mistakes that I'm seeing so that we can spot them together so that you guys will know what to look out for in your own sailing. So without further ado, let's roll the intro and go straight into the video. Let's follow the same order that we went through during the Entry to Freestyle series. So first up, we're going to look at the forward loops. The first video I've been sent is from Jean-Frederic, who's a 50-year-old windsurfer sailing in Tarifa. So let's have a quick look at his attempts first. Okay, so some really nice attempts in there and super cool and motivating to see Jean-Frederic pushing at the age of 50 still, so really sick. But let's break it down, let's see what we can analyze here. So looking at the first clip, I'm going to stop it here at the takeoff. Now in the video of the forward loop, I mentioned that it's really important that we take off downwind. Now the reason for this is, it means you're going to have more time in the air. Instead of having to kick the board downwind and throw the sail and pull at the right time, you only need to push the sail up and across and pull because your board is already going downwind. So having this is just going to give a little bit more time, and actually because you're going further downwind, you're going to be going faster, which means there's less true wind in the sail and more apparent wind, which is actually going to mean less whip, so it's going to be a hell of a lot less scary. So this is the first thing I would change, is going slightly further downwind. The second thing I would change is bringing that weight inboard over the center line of the board. As you can see, if I roll this clip through really slowly, you can see on the takeoff here, Jean is a little bit outboard and far back on the board as he takes off. And as a result, it's really hard to then bring yourself back over the center line of the board for the landing, and you end up just staying there. It's also where that most amount of whip is, which you see he's getting quite a lot of whip from the rotation. And you see there he's landing way off the side of the board, and this all comes from the position of the takeoff. So just bring that weight a little bit further forward and inboard, and you'll find it a lot easier to find yourself over the board ready to land. The third tip I'm going to give is this front arm. It's really important to keep that front arm extended and away from you so that you can reach the sail as far forward as possible, and also so that you keep the axis of rotation underneath the sail. If you pull in with this front arm, you're going to end up going into this endo, and although these attempts aren't really radical endo forward attempts, you can see if I roll it through here that we just clip the mast at the top there. So the top of the mast is catching the water. This is firstly stopping the rotation, but it's also meaning that the weight is going to be completely outboard as well. So if I put an example of one of my forwards over, you can see here I'm lifting the sail up high with my front arm ready to get that sail forward so that I can then pull in and stay under the sail really nicely. Let's have another look at another example of the ones we saw, and then we'll see if we can see the same mistakes in this clip. So here, let's pause the takeoff, and you can see again the weight is not over the center of the board, it's quite outboard and back. And again, you can see it's Levante and Tarifa here, so the ramps are coming quite straight on, and he's taking off really far upwind, which means the kick of the board has to go downwind, which is there, which is actually really nice, but it just means it's an extra thing to think about, and I think you'll find it easier taking off more downwind. And then again, bang, it's the mast that hits the water first, okay? So the mast is hitting the water, and that's what's stopping the rotation. So keeping that front arm extended. So they're my 3 points. Keep your weight inboard. When you take off more downwind, and then keep that front arm extended as you go for the forward loop. Try not to pull in with both arms. But again, really nice attempts, and epic to see you sending it, Jean-Frederic. And yeah, hopefully you send me some clips of you landing it very, very soon. Let's go now on to Jeroen. I hope that's how you pronounce it, from the Netherlands. And we've got a nice forward loop attempt here. Okay, before we play it actually, I really want to shout out this video angle. If you guys are looking to improve your windsurfing, then this is a really good angle to show what's going on with your hands, your feet, your body, your head, the sail and the board. So if you're looking to analyze your own freestyle, then maybe look into getting this. I think it's a fly mount with a GoPro on the underside of the boom. So maybe look at this. But let's have a look at the forward loop attempt first. Whoa. Okay, so completely bails out of this forward loop. Now, whenever I see a crash like this, the first thing I'm thinking is you're on the edge of the rotation because you must have a lot of whip and that's why you've decided to let go. So that normally means that you're not inboard on the takeoff and that you're on that edge of rotation. So let's go back and have a look in very slow motion. So we can see some nice side chop coming from the side and then here, bang, I'm gonna freeze it there. So as you can see on this attempt, Jeroen's position of his body is really far out and back on the board, okay? So when he's pulled here, you can see he gets loads of whip. If we play it on, whoa, and he has to let go, okay? So bringing that weight inboard again is gonna put you at the center of the rotation and then you're gonna have a lot less whip. So bring that weight inboard. The other thing I would notice from this clip is to slide that backhand back. Obviously, when we pull, there's going to be a lot of power there. So sliding that backhand back is going to help control that power so that you're less likely to let go halfway through the rotation. But sick. This clip came with another load of Vulcan and Spock videos on YouTube and some really nice moves in there. So really good going. And yeah, hopefully these tips will help you get a little bit closer to that forward loop. Okay, let's move on then to some Vulcan and Spock attempts. And we're going to go to Prasanisi, where we're going to have a look at Sebastian's attempts that he sent me. So let's roll these first. Okay, so we've got a couple of Vulcan attempts there, as well as a Spock crash. So we're going to break it down a little bit. One of Sebastian's questions in his email was he doesn't know why he's not sliding for longer in his Vulcan. So let's break down the first clip first. So I'm going to go to the takeoff because this is always the part of the Vulcan I think is the most important. So as we see in slow motion here, Sebastian's coming in, he's unhooked, bringing his weight forward and his front hand is at the mast. So really nice, that's really good, Sebastian. Okay, he pops the board right behind this guy. Overshoots the sail, okay, and here, right. This is what I want to stop at here. So, as you can see, Sebastian is pushing out with his backhand here. And what this means is that his weight is going to be slightly off axis and it's also going to put his hand change really behind on the rotation. So let's have a look and see how it goes. So here he lands, gets a little slide, but then the weight starts to shift backwards. And the reason for that is because at this point here, you already want to be grabbing onto that boom or the mast for your hand change. So everything's a little bit delayed and that all comes from that push out with the backhand. Let's roll it. So he manages to get those hands in quickly, but you can see the tail of the board is sinking now because he's lost all of the slide. And then he manages to sail away. So what I would recommend on this attempt is, despite the push out with the backhand being great for shove it Spocks, to start with when you're learning, oversheet that sail a little bit more because that's where all the power is coming from and it's the release of that power that's going to give you the rotation. Okay, you can see you're looking at your backhand while you're pushing out. Try and look over your shoulder into the rotation. That's going to give you a little bit more rotation through with the board, which is going to also encourage that slide and then slightly faster hands. But yeah, nice. It's still a landed Vulcan, so that's sick. Let's look at the next one. Okay, again, we see a little push out there with the backhand, and that's putting the hand change slightly further behind. Actually, this one is a lot better, a lot faster, and you see that in the slide. You see how the head is really far forwards over the mast track, so that's really nice. And we keep sliding, but because the hand change is still a little bit slow, you see the weight shifting back slowly, slowly, slowly. And then here, you just pull in a little bit too soon to sheet in that sail. I think maybe the fin might even be on the sandbar there. and then you sail away. So on this one, a little bit faster with the hands, and again, that will come from not pushing out the back hands. But again, look pretty happy with that, so nice. And then finally, let's go onto the Spock. Okay, nice. So again, I'm going to point out this takeoff. There, you see how when you push out with the backhand, the sail really backwinds. Not only is that going to stop you or slow you down from pulling it across and in front of you for the Spock, but again, it's putting you slightly off axis. So we can see at this point here, look how low the sail is to the water. You want to already be dragging that high and forward so the mast is as upright as possible. But because you get a nice slide and your weight's really far forward, which is great, you get a good slide into the Spock, but the hand change is happening now, a little bit too late, and the sail powers up and you're not quite ready for it, which is where you get that whip from. So yeah, a little bit early with the hand change. Again, this comes from pushing out with the backhand. Let's get rid of that. Try more to sheet in the sail, oversheet the sail to get the rotation, and then that will put you in a better position. You won't be so behind the whole time. But yeah, some really good technique in here. These small minor tweaks will make a really big difference, I think. So really good from Sebastian there. The next one we go to is Adam, who's also learning how to Vulcan. In his email, he said he's been trying 1,000 Vulcans and still really struggling with the move, but can forward loop. So we know he's got the pop for it. We just need to work on some of the techniques. So here we go. Let's look at some more attempts. Okay, so again, very similar to Sebastian here. Adam needs to stop pushing out with the backhand. If I go to this example, you can see at this point here, there's a big push out with the backhand. And as a result, you see the landing is kind of at that 100 degrees. We really want to be getting to 130, 140 degrees of rotation to get that positive slide backwards. Because the sail is quite sheeted out, as we see again on the takeoff, Adam is not really harnessing the power from the sail to get the rotation. So that sheet in, Adam, the front hand's in the good position and you can clearly pop the board, but using the power in the sail is what's going to give you the rotation, not pushing out on the sail. Another thing I would say, if we go to the first example here, is you jump quite high, okay? Now the spot itself, you can see you're coming off the backs of bits of chop, which can be difficult, I understand this, but try and wait for that flatter spot so you don't jump so high. As you can see here, because you've jumped so high, the impact when you land is quite hard and your weight instantly shifts backwards, and that's why you're falling then completely out the back. Okay, the combination of that with pushing out with the backhand there, you see, means that the sail is really to the side and you don't have the sail or your weight over the center line of the board as a result of going so high. So try and control that pop a little bit more. It's not about how high you go, it's about trying to get that consistent rotation and initiating the slide that comes from it afterwards. Okay, and then let's go on to the Flaka. Now, the attempt I have here is from Ashton, who is a surf hotel instructor out here in Vasiliki. And I've been seeing a couple of Flaka attempts throughout the season. So let's have a look at the one he sent first. Okay, so looking at the takeoff then, in the video I talk about this little carved down wind where you bring the sail back and so that you can throw it forwards while carving the board with your toes before flattening off to take off. Now, actually, Ashton's doing this really nicely. If I go forward to this point, you see here, his head is forward, his weight is forward onto that front knee, and the sail is oversheeted and far back, ready to throw into the apparent wind. This is really nice. The issue is this position is held for far too long, and as a result, the board speed is slowing down and the apparent wind is then going to be shifting more towards the true wind. And this again makes it really hard to find that apparent wind, which is what again we're throwing the sail forward for to initiate the Flaka. So I want that sail to come back and then instantly explode. You want to pick that piece of chop, carve towards it and then throw. If you carve, your board speed's going to slow, and then it's going to be really hard to find that apparent wind. So going a bit faster on that throw is going to make the world of difference, Ashton. You've got to keep that speed consistent, and then the apparent wind will stay consistent. The second point I'm going to say, if we scroll it forward to this point, is the classic Flaka mistake, and that is pushing out with the backhand. When you initiate that Flaka, if you haven't quite found the apparent wind, the temptation is to push out with that backhand so that you feel pressure in the sail coming from the other way. Really avoid doing this, because what happens when you push out is that you kill all the rotation. And if I scroll this forward to here, you can see because of that, it completely stops the rotation, and you end up tripping the rail and going in over the side. So to improve this, again, more consistent speed coming in will help you find that apparent wind. Trust that there's going to be pressure in your sail from that, and wait for it to come. That way you can keep your backhand nice and close to you and stay consistent into that upwind 360 position. The third thing I'm going to mention for Ashton is to commit that weight slightly further forward. Now you can see the nose is initiating into the water and the fin is clear of the water. So you would have landed this if you'd found the apparent wind. However, your weight is pretty even at this point between your 2 feet. I really want it right over your front leg, and your head, you want to aim to have that over the mast track. So the further forward you go, the easier it is to commit to that sail, and then you're less likely to push out with that backhand as well. So slightly further forward with the commitment, don't push out with that backhand, and keep that carve a little bit shorter so that you can find the apparent wind. Okay, and then moving on to the final clip I have is going to be of Felix, who is learning to Shaka. So let's have a look, because Felix sent a few attempts. And nice, a wet Shaka there. So in Felix's email, he said that he's struggling to get the rotation a little bit. He ends up doing a lot of shove it into upwind 360. So let's break that down and maybe find out why that is. So this first clip is a really good angle for the Shaka. So let's break that down. As you can see, this position here is really nice, but a little bit like Ashton's Flaka, you hold that initiation position a little bit too long, so you're losing speed the whole time. And again, with the Shaka, you want that apparent wind coming as straight as possible so that you get that lift from the sail when you go forward on top of it. So having this carving position is just slowing you down, and it's meaning you're not going to quite get the same amount of lift. So keep more speed coming into it. Okay, let's keep it rolling. The second point I'm going to have is actually this position here is really nice, and you could land this Shaka, no problem. But you need to bring the sail forwards with you as you rotate. You see here you're landing, and the sail, your body weight's forward, which is nice, but the sail is backwards. You're going to be landing in that position ready to upwind 360. So if the sail's caught back behind you, you're going to then have to bring it forward, which you try here. But by this point, it's already too late. So bring that sail forwards with you in the air, and that way you're going to keep rotating. That's going to give you more rotation first of all, and then you're going to be in a better position to, if we actually look at the one that you landed really wet, the pop here is nicer and you get more rotation because you're faster, you have a quicker snap. So that's one noticeable difference. And then here you see you bring that sail much further forwards with you, and here you're in an upwind 360 position. So this is much, much better. And you start rotating around. Unfortunately, the board gets a little bit bogged and you rush the upwind 360 ever so slightly, and that's why you end up water starting away from this one instead of sailing cleanly away. So bring that sail forwards with you. That's going to give you that extra rotation, and then be patient around that upwind 360 part of the Shaka. So guys, that is a wrap for the Entry to Freestyle series. Thanks so much for everyone for watching. If you sent me your clips and they didn't feature in this video, don't worry, I will be making future episodes, and you already have your email feedback, so you know what to work on in the future. If you want me to analyze your clips, then be sure to send them to clipsforgeorge@gmail.com. I'll leave it in the description of this video, and I will email you a breakdown of your clips with some screenshots showing you what I think you can improve on. If you want to see more series like this in the future, I would love to do a switch stance series. I would love to do a power move series. Then be sure to subscribe to the channel, like and share with your friends. It does make all the difference, these numbers, to producing these videos. So thank you very much for everyone for doing that. So the next week's video is going to be me breaking down my foil style setup, going into details of what foil and board I'm using, as well as a little debate answering your guys' feedback on what you guys think about foil style. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next video.